have here is the purple-tooth polypore, Trichaptum biformis, one of the most common wood decayers in North America. It's almost exclusively saprophytic, and it is, they really they're gregarious. They're not observing any social distancing, as you can see, very close together.
And why are they called tooth fungus?
They're not a tooth fungus.
Tooth polypore.
Okay, it's a polypore.
And go ahead.
Is that they're the opposite of us. As we age, our teeth become pores. As they age, their pores become teeth. This is called the crowded parchment, Sterium complicatum, and it grows like the purple-tooth polypore in crowds. You never see individuals, but often, as is the case with other fungi, mycelia make mistakes. And it's supposed to be growing in such a way as to drop its spores with the fertile surface down. But here you have it. This is, believe it or not, the same species as this small thing here. What happened was it started growing under the log, and the mycelium realized, hey, I can't be really gravitropic in dropping my spores if I'm doing this, so I'll just spread out, and eventually I'll grow over the side, and I then can do the right thing.
There's two patches, one there and there's one up there. Oh.
This is a hygroscopy, otherwise called a waxy cap. They tend to grow in moss. They used to be thought to be mycorrhizal, meaning they're mycelia connected underground with roots of plants and trees. But now we think that they're getting their nutrients from either the moss or what might end up getting lodged in the moss. They come in a variety of very bright colors, oranges, reds, even green. And one of the things that is diagnostic, they have very wide gills, and often those
Wait, hold it up a little closer, and let me just get the focus on it. There we go.
And often those gills tend to go down the stem. Well, from above, the rotund look of this suggests to me it's a bolete. And indeed it is. And as you can see, it's really a good edible. Now, when I use the word edible, I'm referring not only to human beings, but to insects and other critters and boletes. Because the underside, where the pores are so soft and fluffy, tend to be a magnet for all sorts of what we call mycophages, mycophage. These are not just human beings, but also insects, beetles, sometimes birds, squirrels, etc. Okay, here's another bolete, and as you can see, it also isn't edible. And because the pores are larger than what was left of the pores in the other specimen, this is a bolete called a Suillus, S-U-I-L-L-U-S, and 95% that grow with pines. And there could be a pine within 100 feet that the mycelium is extending to. If not, there's one that grows with oaks. And given the look of this, I think, I see mostly maples, but I think this might be that exception.
That's a dead oak right behind you. A lot of the oaks here are dead from gypsy moth.
Yes, exactly.
There's one there.
Here we have a russula, Russula, and these are amongst the most common mushrooms in the woods during the fruiting season of mycorrhizal mushrooms, which goes from May to June until October, November. And russulas can be identified not because they have red caps, because about a third of them don't, but what you do is the cuticle peels. As you can see, this will peel a third to a half of the way to the center, so I'll use that to help identify it. Russulas are also called brittle gills, and as you can see, I'm meshing the gills up because they're so brittle. I could also say something about, and the only two species of organisms that find russulas good edibles are Russians and flying squirrels. What we have here is the false turkey tail, Sterium austraea. It's exclusively a wood recycler, and it does a lot better job than Homo sapiens in this department. It's called the false turkey tail because unlike a true turkey tail, which has pores on the underside, this has seemingly nothing. But it's not really nothing, because if we had really sharp eyes that could see microns, we would see what's called the basidia, which are producing spores all across the surface of this. So it's not a sterile surface at all. Soft, soft. I think it's an uncommon species. They have to take it back and look it up. So,
Okay.
the aerial view is never enough in identifying a specimen. And in this case, the underside is not enough either. I'm going to probably have to take this home and do microscopic work on it to determine what it is, because often spore size and shape can help one make a determination about what specimen it is one has collected. But my guess is, because this is a polypore and it's very, very soft, it could either be what's called a pteromyces or an oligoporous, i.e. poria.
Go ahead.
This is a lichen. Lichens are members in good standing in kingdom fungi, and this is what's known as a Crustos Lichen. Crustos lichens grow on rocks, but the reason we're focusing on this are these little tiny black dots that are called apothecia. They're really cups, and they are the survival of the fungal partner to either the algal or cyanobacterial partner in the specimen, and they're an ascomycete. Many ascomycetes are cup fungi, and that cup part of their morphology survives here. The spores are produced inside those cups, and they go happily out in search of an algae to partner with.
Go ahead.
This has deep roots of gills. They're ridges, loosely. They don't go deep the way the gills will go. So that distinguishes this from just step forward. Important point.
Yeah.
This is a bolete that has been parasitized by hypomyces. And in times like this, we're having very dry weather. Parasites of fungi, parasites of other things, often go into overdrive, and the host doesn't have the same defenses it might have in a normal moist year. So that's why one commonly tends to find parasitized boletes, parasitized russulas, and parasitized amanitas.
So that's a fungus that's been parasitized by a fungus.
That's exactly right. It's a basidiomycete, which mushroom-shaped mushrooms are parasitized by an ascomycete. What we're finding, but what I'm thinking of doing now is if there's anything really unusual or common enough, we'll find it maybe somewhere
Okay, go ahead.
else.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what's called the olive-toothed polypore. And once again, it starts out with pores, and the pores become teeth, like the purple-toothed polypore. This grows exclusively on deciduous branches and limbs. It's a saprophyte, which means it's a recycler. And sometimes you can find these teeth, these olive teeth, extending along, let's say, an oak branch for 7, 8, or 9 feet.
We've just come up a hill here, and there's a little patch of winged euonymus, burning bush right here.
Oh, nice.
But in fact, it's also got seedlings that go off over here. So it's ripe for some kind of control.
This is another bolete, and this one stains brownish on the underside when you injure it. And I don't know what species it is, but that fact, plus yellowish pores,
Wait a minute. Okay.
and semi-cracked cap, and the brown stain will help me identify it. I don't recognize this russula. You don't think I need to go back over what I said before, like here are the gills. It's a lot more, shall we say, wimpish than other mushrooms. Other mushrooms, you throw them against a tree and they'll break into 2 or 3 pieces. Russulas will shatter, and throwing them against a tree is one way you can release the frustration you have from not being able to identify them. So watch this. It's a lot more, shall we say, wimpish than other mushrooms. Other mushrooms, you throw them against a tree and they'll break into 2 or 3 pieces. Russulas will shatter, and throwing them against a tree is one way you can release the frustration you have from not being able to identify them. So watch this.
All right.
Well, this is what's called a Resupinate Polypore. Some people think of polypores as being only brackets, but in fact, the larger proportion of them grows supine, i.e. flat against the surface of a log. And looking at the pores here, they're pretty extended, and this goes for 3 feet or so. And it's, to me, I can tell you it's what's called an Antrodia species. I'm not sure which one. Again, I'd have to put it under the microscope. Skin poison puffball. But this is, just a minute. This is different.
Ah,
That's good. Boletus parasiticus. And this is a combination of a bolete and the pigskin poison puffball. And in the old days up till about 10 years ago, it was thought that the bolete was attacking the scleroderma puffball. No, this is a puffball that is attacking the bolete. Very good for the table.
Huh. So this is another mushroom puffball combo right here.
Yeah, this is the Boletus parasiticus. Okay, what this is. I think it's a species of Amanita. Not all Amanitas have rings. This is one that doesn't. It has crenulations in the bottom of the stem that'll help. And these are the little warts that were once part of the universal veil. And very, very importantly, striations all around the cap, along the margin, which will be probably the easiest way to identify it. These are what's called black trumpets, Cretarellus species. They're also called black chanterelles, and they fruit in quantities sometimes, which makes certain people very happy who tend to eat them. My own interest in them just lies in studying them, and it turns out that what was once thought one species is maybe 5 or 6, so I delight in trying to identify them, and then I might eat them afterwards. Before they become trumpets, they're more like mini clarinets with an opening at the top. But the top is not where the spores come from. The spores come from the surface along the side, and they are related to chanterelles. They have ridges, not gills. This. I've got to scope it, David. I think this is a species that's rare, called Puzarella. I'm not sure, but I'd have to put it under the scope.
There's another one right here.
And again, there's actually a third, too. But I'm expecting it will have angular spores. It's close to the Inocybe family, and I last found this about 15 years ago.
A lot of gypsy moth damage. We got one mushroom here, right? At the bottom of this tree. It's the only one we've seen, basically the only one we've seen in the entire walk. There were 2. Here's the other one right here. You can see. You see the gills. Even though there's enough water here to make this little stream with ponds, there are virtually no mushrooms of any kind. I followed the stream bed up, and in this little patch where it's wet enough to grow sphagnum, we finally found a mushroom. There it is right there. A Rusula. Have Larry come over and take a look at it. around the oak. Oh, you got it.
No, I don't think so. No, these are dried up corals.
Oh.
And this is called, should I say something about it?
Sure.
This is called the spindle coral, or it could now be called the X-spindle coral. But these are bright yellow. Yellow shaft is another word, and they rise up. This was rising up out of some really rotten wood. This is typically a ground dweller, and what's happened here is the mycelium. One can say not so much that it made a mistake, is that it's taken very rotten wood and confused it with soil. And in a certain sense, very rotten wood is indeed akin to soil. Come on over. This is a Inonotus, probably species of polypore, but what I'm calling to your attention are the tubes here. And it's out of the tubes that the spores are created. The pore at the bottom is sterile, but all along each one of the tubes, and I can't tell, this could have 2 tube layers, which means it's perennial. All along the bottom tube layer, spores are being produced. And if you think of these, you look at these and you see how close they are to each other, think of it as like a series of chimneys where the dampers are almost all closed, and then multiply that by 10,000, and you'll imagine how many spores a polypore like this produces.